Imagine living in a country where after 10 p.m., flushing the toilet could be considered illegal, all to avoid disturbing the perfect silence, or where hanging clothes on Sundays is forbidden to preserve the peace of the neighborhood. This might sound like a bizarre curiosity, but it's just one of the many peculiarities that make Switzerland a unique country. Welcome to the place where perfection turned into business. Switzerland, a landlocked country surrounded by nations that have experienced devastating wars, with mountainous and infertile terrain, somehow managed to become one of the richest countries with the highest quality of life on the planet. Here, public transport is the most efficient in the world, prisons resemble luxury hotels, and the minimum wage, the highest in the world. But, as with all perfection, there's a price to pay. Switzerland is the most expensive country in the world to live in. The question is, how did a country without a capital, staying out of conflicts, manage to become the ultimate example of prosperity, democracy, and stability, all with a steep cost? Today, we will unravel Switzerland's secrets and discover what truly makes this country a paradise, yet with its own mysteries. Our journey begins in Geneva, in the far west, where not only the city is a global center of diplomacy, but also a reflection of everything Switzerland represents. We're talking about a society with impressive power. To give you an idea of the wealth here, 4 of the 10 richest people in Brazil live in Switzerland. But what's more interesting is that 45% of the population in Geneva is made up of immigrants, many of whom come because of the international organizations based here. One clear example is the United Nations, which has one of its few headquarters in Geneva. The city is a true global power center. Look at this fountain behind me, which shoots water 140 meters high. It's stunning. And the Lake of Geneva? Extremely clean. You can see the bottom and even see the ducks having fun. For a lake in a large city, it's surprisingly clean. Geneva is one of the largest cities in Switzerland, with 8.7 million inhabitants. Other large cities include Zurich, Basel, Lausanne, and the administrative capital Bern. The first impression upon arriving here is how everything is impeccable. People ride bicycles everywhere, and you can even find free drinking water in the streets. Now, if you look up at the airport ceiling or around the city, you'll realize that time here is taken seriously. Just look at the Rolex on the ceiling or the giant flower clock in the square. And of course, it doesn't take long to notice that everything here is expensive. The minimum wage in Geneva is 24 Swiss francs per hour. To put it into perspective, this means a Swiss worker can make a significant amount in a 10-hour workday. And if you think the cost of living is high, you're right. There are hotels here, for example, that can cost 110 euros per night for a tiny room with a shared bathroom and a claustrophobic elevator. Parking is also quite expensive. Every time I parked for a few hours, it cost more than 20 euros. Even a simple tea with 3 chocolates costs 17 euros. And then there's the cost of housing. A basic rental can range from 1,100 to 1,300 Swiss francs depending on the area and number of rooms. Also, if you plan on living here, prepare to pay for health insurance, which is mandatory. In my case, I pay 190 francs per month at 24 years old, and no one can live here without it. In Switzerland, things work quite differently from what we're used to. Normally, in countries like England, Germany, or even in Spain and Portugal, the biggest city becomes the capital, with all the power concentrated there. But Switzerland chose to take the opposite route. Instead of centralizing everything in one city, this model has been successful as Switzerland ranks among the least corrupt countries in the world. Comparing it to other countries like Somalia, which ranks last, or Denmark, which leads, Switzerland has a reputation for transparency and fairness that's impressive. And even though it's a large city, there's a sense of a small-town vibe, with that welcoming, hometown feeling. The structure here is incredible, with extremely green grass, ping-pong tables for you to play anywhere in the city, water fountains to drink from, and benches where you can sit and just watch life pass by. I think this is the lifestyle here in Switzerland. That's why this country has attracted many important people. One of them is Albert Einstein, who lived here in Bern for a while. He lived in this house while working on the theory of relativity. He simply discovered that time is relative. If you're stationary, time passes one way, but if you're moving, time passes in a completely different way. He's a guy who contributed a lot to society. His work still helps us to this day. And you, my friend, are you contributing to society, or are you alone in your room, waking up late, watching the day fly by as if they're all the same? The meaning of life is... So wake up, buddy. Zurich. Zurich is the largest city in Switzerland, and it's interesting because 4 languages are spoken in this country. We started in Geneva, where French is spoken, and now we're in Zurich, where German is spoken. But here, Italian and Romansh are also spoken. But let's get to the point. How is this country so rich? Welcome to Paradeplatz. And behind me is the largest bank here, UBS. This is like a street where the biggest banks in the country are concentrated. It's kind of like Wall Street here. Look at how money moves around in Switzerland. This is a 10 Swiss franc note, which is vertical and one of the most beautiful banknotes in the world. Very interesting. Now, one of the most fascinating aspects of Switzerland is its political system. While most countries have a president or a centralized government, Switzerland adopts a model of direct democracy. Here, citizens have an active voice in the country's decisions. Instead of relying solely on elected representatives, Swiss people can vote directly on important issues like new laws and reforms through national referendums. In many cities, like Zurich, people gather in the central square and raise their hands to approve or reject proposals. This ensures that the voice of the people is always heard, making Switzerland one of the least corrupt countries in the world. It's a unique system and an example of how democracy can work in a transparent and accessible way for everyone. Switzerland's economy is defined by the strength of its currency and the global reputation of its banks, which attract a lot of wealthy individuals. What's the secret behind this? Privacy. For many years, Swiss banks have protected the identities of their clients, which was a huge advantage for the rich but also for those involved in illegal activities. However, this practice has been challenged in recent years, with the government requiring more transparency to ensure national security. Even so, the banking sector remains the country's biggest source of income. Interestingly, despite being a small country with fewer than 9 million inhabitants, Switzerland is home to around 800,000 millionaires, according to a report from Credit Suisse. But it's not just in banking that Switzerland shines. The country is recognized as the most innovative in the world, and a prime example of this is Swiss chocolate, which is considered the best on the planet. The interesting part is that Switzerland doesn't grow cacao, as the terrain isn't suitable for it. Instead, they buy cacao from countries like Brazil, Colombia, and Ghana, which have perfect conditions for cultivation. These countries, however, lack the infrastructure to turn the cacao into chocolate. So the Swiss buy the cacao, complete the entire process, and sell the chocolate at much higher prices, leveraging their expertise in production. In this way, Switzerland continues to be a model of innovation, efficiency, and wealth, both in business and in industry. In many countries, there is a significant discrepancy between what is produced and what is consumed, especially when it comes to natural resources. An example of this is Brazil, one of the world's largest oil producers. However, despite the abundance of oil in Brazilian soil, gasoline is extremely expensive. This happens because the oil is extracted from Brazil, refined in other countries, and then sold back to Brazil at a much higher price. This reality is common in many places, where natural wealth does not directly reflect in the consumer price for the population. This is somewhat similar to Switzerland. Despite being a relatively small country, it manages to generate a huge amount of wealth. And all this money is directly reflected in the quality of life of the population, something that can be seen in many areas. A clear example of this is public transportation, which has one of the best networks in the world. Switzerland is full of mountains, which makes transportation a challenge, but still, they manage to connect almost all cities with an incredible network of trains and buses. Here, transportation is not only efficient, but also quiet and practical. In large cities like Zurich, you can walk peacefully through the streets without being disturbed by noise because many buses and trains are electric. This creates a calm atmosphere even in bustling urban centers. And it's not just that. You can reach places you wouldn't imagine. Ever heard of a train that crosses a mountain? Well, here it's possible. And the most interesting part is that the Swiss have managed to adapt their transportation infrastructure in such an efficient way that you can travel for kilometers inside a tunnel, going from one point to another without even realizing the distance. But like anywhere, not everything is perfect. Switzerland has laws that are very different from what we are used to, and it's important to respect them to maintain social harmony. For example, you cannot flush the toilet after 10 p.m. to avoid disturbing your neighbors, nor can you mow the lawn on Sundays. All of this is part of the Swiss way of life, where the quality of life is preserved through respect for the rules that help maintain peace and tranquility in such an advanced society. Well, yes, we have these laws in our building. We can't take a shower after 10. We can't make any noise after 7. In fact, I think between midnight and 1:30 a.m. you can't flush the toilet or take a shower. It's the same thing. Yeah, it's written in our rental contract that it's like that. Damn, man. And it's really strict. Like, we're lucky that the landlord of our apartment lives on the top floor. She doesn't live near us because I'm sure she would complain. Damn. If we made noise, our neighbors aren't Swiss. Yeah. So they don't complain. They also make noise, and we don't complain. But we know that our landlord is super picky about it, and we have to be careful with her. So these laws really work. They really are strict about these silence laws. I remember one day, it was December 31st, a holiday, and it was a Saturday. On Saturdays you can make noise, but since it was a holiday, technically, you can't make noise. But it was December 31st, right? There are fireworks and everything, it's a party day. And we were moving a table, we bought a table and brought it into the house. We ran into a neighbor in the elevator, and the neighbor immediately called the landlord and said, "There are people moving. There are people making a move on Saturday." Because it was a holiday, even though it was Saturday. It's super strict, it's kind of ridiculous. Perfect. Maybe this country forced itself to be a perfect place, but everything depends on culture. Sometimes what works for us doesn't work for them. But let's stop talking about the big city. Let's move to the real side of this country, the side that never stops surprising. Nature. So wait, Switzerland, in addition to being very good economically, politically, being a country that is in a really good location, neutral, with no wars, these guys still have these landscapes, man. Damn, this country doesn't stop, bro. Yeah, man, here begins the real Switzerland. The greenest grass I've ever seen in my life, with incredibly beautiful mountains, big lakes. This place is called Sachsenluch, which is a trail up on the Alps. To get there, man, we had to take an extremely long and also expensive cable car. They even charge for your dog, $10 for your dog. And even then, it's just a taste of what this country is like. It's the kind of, I'm still speechless, and that makes me think. Life sometimes surprises us in ways that words can't describe. Nature, for example, has no rush and doesn't need explanations. The connection we feel with it goes beyond anything words can convey. Today we reach the end of an incredible journey, a 90-minute hike in the Swiss Alps. And seriously, what a place is this? We're 2,000 meters up, and honestly, it takes your breath away. The beauty here is surreal. You can see mountains, tiny villages in the middle of nowhere, little houses scattered all around. The lifestyle here is on another level. It's that peaceful vibe, where people truly choose to live in harmony. There are so many isolated houses, tiny villages hidden in the mountains, and honestly, I can understand why this way of life is so valued here. After all, who wouldn't want to live a simpler life, more connected to nature without the rush? And even when you think everything is calm, the scenery reminds you that we're actually not in control. This mountain, for example, looks safe, but look down, and a cliff awaits you. It gives you a chill down your spine. But it's a unique feeling to be there, in nature, feeling its power. The Swiss have a deep love for nature. They even built a roller coaster literally in the mountains, where you speed down and see firsthand the force of nature in a pretty radical way. And while driving through villages in rural Switzerland, we even encountered a strange scene. Apples left out, unattended. The trust and honesty here are fundamental. You leave the money, take the fruit, and go. It's a simple system, but so genuine. My takeaway so far is that Switzerland is almost another world. And I have the feeling that we've just discovered one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. Lauterbrunnen. It's such a fascinating village, it feels like something out of a fairy tale nestled in the Alps. I'm in awe. On my left, there are houses with large trees around, and up on the mountain peaks, structures that make everything look even grander. On my right, a cable car heading into the unknown, and right in front of me, the tallest mountain in Europe. Impressive. You know those places in movies like The Lord of the Rings? Well, that's what it feels like here. Lauterbrunnen not only left me speechless, but it also made me reflect on what it truly means to be present, without rushing, simply admiring what's in front of you. Of course, the day also included a stop to try the local cuisine, and to be honest, it wasn't exactly what I expected. A dish with cheese, pickles, potatoes, and sausage. It wasn't the best, but like with any trip, it's important to experience the culture, even through food. Now, even after a whole day of exploring, one thing stood out to me. While Switzerland is one of the most perfect places I've ever visited, it does have its challenges. We went to Albinen, a village facing a curious problem. Its population is decreasing, and the government is paying people to move there. They pay well too, between $20,000 and $25,000 per person to help repopulate the town. But of course, there are conditions. You need to invest in properties and commit to living there for a while. But that's just a reflection of how Switzerland values peace and tranquility, but also knows how to deal with the issues of a constantly changing world. But the journey doesn't end here. If you're curious to learn about more secret and luxurious destinations around the globe, leave a comment below telling us which place you'd like to see in our next film. If you're in search of the extraordinary, the unique experience, and the most exclusive spots the world has to offer, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. New videos are on the way, and they promise to be even more fascinating. Don't miss out. Now that you've discovered the luxuries and secrets of this incredible destination, imagine what else the world has to offer. There are so many fascinating and mysterious places waiting to be uncovered, each with its own unique stories and exclusive experiences. From grand castles to private islands, the world is full of wonders that only a few have the chance to explore.